Hi everybody. I wonder if you've heard about Bill 60 in the news recently. Part of this bill addresses aspects of the Residential Tenancies Act, and I just want to give you all a quick summation of how this will impact both landlords and tenants. Now, there are 5 key provisions to this bill. Number 1, termination notices from both the landlord and the tenant. They're going to be on standard forms issued by the Landlord-Tenant Board. This has been made to avoid any ambiguity that we had in the past. Number 2, compensation. Today, if a tenant's been given notice to leave for the landlord's use or if the property sold, tenants were entitled to a compensation of 1 month's rent. After January 1st, however, no compensation is required if the landlord gives the tenant 120 days notice, or if the termination date is the last day of a rental period, or at the end of a fixed term tenancy that day. Number 3, there's a shorter notice period for the landlord for non-payment of rent. Presently, the termination notice is 14 days, and now it's been reduced to 7 days to give them the N4 notice. The Landlord-Tenant Board will also define what persistent failure to pay rent on time is. It used to be more discretionary, but Bill 60 will give a more defined definition, and that will take away discretion from the adjudicator, and it'll likely make it easier to evict a tenant who's persistently late with their payments. Number 4. Now, this is one of the most controversial parts of the bill. If a landlord makes an application to evict a tenant for non-payment of rent or if there's rent arrears, if the tenant wants to raise their own issues against the landlord at the hearing, the tenants will now have to disclose the issues prior to the hearing, which they didn't have to before. And secondly, they'll have to pay half the rent arrears before the hearing. Now, this isn't the case today. The big problem here is tenants, they have limited income and often can't pay the arrears in order to raise their own issues like repair issues or harassment issues by the landlord, and which in some cases will reduce what they owe. And number 5, lastly, this one's a bit more complicated, but the Landlord-Tenant Board in many people's opinions is skewed towards favoring of the tenant. Now, this new bill will set limits on the board's discretion. I can only take this to mean that the bill will be more landlord-friendly. And as with most new legislation, it's complicated. There's going to be growing pains, but I guess we'll see soon enough if this was a good change or a bad one. Anyhow, I love doing these videos, so like, share, and we'll talk soon.